I'm Jane Olvera. I'm the founder and president of JP Marketing, headquartered in Fresno, California. And I do have a couple of other business interests as well in related industries, video production and marketing and outreach as well, with some trusted partners that I've worked with. But primarily for the last 25 years, my heart and soul has been put into JP Marketing, which is a marketing and advertising agency. And I look forward to talking to you today and participating. And you're listening to From the Heart with Ed Hart, presented by Orange Kiwi Consulting.
Thank you, Jane. It's so good to see you. I've known Jane. Jane and I actually belonged to, and I guess I still am part of it, Family Business Alliance, which is university directors like myself. I run the Center for Family Business at Cal State Fullerton. Jane was active on the board for the other CSUF in California, Fresno State. Yep. I think we met in about 2015 at one of our Alliance conferences up in South Dakota, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Some fun memories there that we can probably talk about on the podcast, and some others that might be better left untalked about. So
probably
with the group, we had some really good group fun up there, playing cards and staying up late and doing all kinds of fun stuff.
Yeah.
And we've just been friends ever since. Jane came down and spoke to our center members a couple of years ago. For my money, she's one of the top marketing and branding and advertising experts that I've ever met, and I know quite a few, and they're all great. But Jane has a knack. She's been founded the company, I believe, in 1994, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
The year before that, and we'll talk about it a little bit, she was Miss California USA in 1993. That might come up in this conversation as well. But I want to start with the quote that you put on the bottom of the bio that you sent to me, and just see where that quote takes us. And Jane says, "Creating wins and cultivating relationships is my passion. Marketing is my medium." So let's go right into that. Creating wins. Tell me what you mean by that.
Yeah. So creating wins and cultivating relationships is actually our company philosophy. And we developed it as a team about 4 years ago. And it really came about because I help a lot of companies brand themselves, right? And brand authenticity is so important. It's like, what are you really on the inside? And then it's my job to sort of help communicate that to the world. Or to their worlds, their target audiences. And it's so much easier to do that task for someone else. For me, on the outside, to be able to work with a company and a brand and utilize tools like Simon Sinek's Golden Circle as an example, right? Which is tried and true. It's my go-to when I'm helping companies with branding, because it's not just what you do or how you do it, it's the why you do it. And the why is so hard to answer. But I think when you're, the founder and president of a company, the brand is very much a reflection of who you are. As much as you want to maybe try to deny that, it really is, kind of you out there in a way. And I find that over the years, really, the team members are really sort of a reflection of the brand and the agency, of course, but we needed to be united and aligned on the why. And, when it's not very often, that when we're working in marketing that you feel sort of a social impact, right? Yeah. You might be helping a company sell widgets or I live in an agricultural area, so we might be helping a company, you could say, well, we're helping to feed the world in a sustainable way, right? And that seems so like fantastic and amazing, yeah. Right? It feels big and our work isn't always like that, right? I'm not helping to feed the world or sustain forests or whatever it might be. But when we all work together and tried to really define the why we exist, we discovered that amongst our team, not just me, and maybe it's because it's how I hire, but a lot of my team members were very driven, very outcomes driven. Not always about the win in terms of what you might think the win is, because the win can be a very different thing depending on what it is and what you're motivated by. It might be closing the sale. It might be a greater gross profit. So it might be numbers of money driven, but it might also just be like, it feels good, or the client's happy, or the client won an award for the work, whatever, right?
Sure.
The win is whatever somebody defines it to be, but my team is very outcomes driven, win driven. And
So
when
yeah,
there can be
you do hire people like you. That's if I were to describe you, I would have just described you the way you just described your team.
yeah, yeah. And we think that if we're smart enough, and we do some really good problem solving, we can generally create win-wins. And when I communicate with my clients, I say, we're going to work on what a win looks like together. We need to define success before we start. And whether you've worked with me for 20 years and it's a new campaign, we still have to define the win. I can't just assume that that mark is the same. And then I'll tell the client, I can't hit a target I can't see.
Yeah.
So we have to have really, really, really good communication so that me and my team have a clear understanding of this target. Now, we may not hit the bullseye every single time, but I'm for sure going to miss it if I don't have clarity on the target, right? So part of our why is how do we get to the definition of that win, and then how do we try to make a win-win? So that's creating wins. And then along the way, it's important for us to cultivate a relationship. Like this sounds really cliche, but we really care about our clients. Like
Right.
we end up having friendships and attending birthday parties, and we can have over many, many years, which is unusual for an agency. A lot of agencies churn and burn clients.
Right.
And we have clients from day one. We have about an 88% client retention rate because that relationship is important to us. And interestingly enough, once we realized that trust was the ultimate outcome of a relationship, right? When I trust you and you trust me, we can say anything to each other. We can have hard conversations. We can celebrate together. We can do all of those things in a safe space. So that cultivating that relationship and doing everything we can on our end to cultivate that relationship is critically important to us, because we might have to work all night to meet a deadline. But if we have a great relationship with that person, it's going to feel good, right?
Right.
When it's done, and that person's going to appreciate and do those things. And when we implemented this sort of company philosophy / tagline about 4 years ago, we ended up saying to ourselves, we may have poop in the punch bowl right now. And my team thought that was really funny. I put a poop emoji in a punch bowl, and I said, it only takes one little turd to ruin the whole bowl,
punch bowl, yeah.
right? So we had to take a look at ourselves and say, is there any poop in our punch bowl internally? People that aren't on board with this philosophy or not committed to the team in this way, not willing to do whatever it takes to cultivate a relationship. Maybe, and we did have a person leave the organization once we sort of doubled down on this strategy. We also had poop in the punch bowl in clients.
Sure.
Sometimes you just have those relationships that need to be eliminated.
Yeah, we've all fired clients because it just wasn't a good cultural fit for us, for our people,
Yep.
and maybe we weren't for them and we saw it first. Yeah, I think when you have trust, just to interject for a second, one of the things that hit me as you were talking is that it really throws the questioning motives out the window. Because when a client and a vendor have question marks about what the real motive is, really trust isn't there yet. And I feel that when I look at the family businesses I work with, and even the friendships that I have, in and out of my family and so forth, and just my social circle, once trust is there, all motives are out the window. They know that my motive is what's best for them.
Correct. It's intent, right?
Yeah.
So we ended up firing 2 clients under the "it's not you, it's us."
It's not you, it's us. Yeah, exactly. It's not you, it's me. It's what I feel about you. Yeah.
Right? It was really like it was a really bad breakup. But at the end of the day, it does make everybody's lives just a little bit better, because there are just some relationships that just aren't going to work out, and that's okay. We try to do a better job now of vetting that up front to the best of our ability, but and I think a lot of what we do in our organization probably is pretty much reflective of kind of things you do in your personal life too. It's just that I think when it's your own company or your own personal relationships, you are so close to them that you can't always see them, right?
Sure.
Or you're just in a pattern of behavior or a funky comfort zone, and it's easier to sort of stay in that space than it is to sort of disrupt that space. But to put it in context, we're talking here in the beginning of fourth quarter of 2020. Yeah. And I have been counting down the weeks left in the year. So there's not just as a sidebar, I have the countdown app now on my phone so
nice.
that I can, how many Mondays are left in the year?
Yeah, exactly.
How many days are left in the year? And I was sort of joking about it a bit, but not really joking about it, because it does feel like every new year gives you sort of that restart button, kind of hit the button on the restart. Right. But to be honest, as I sort of think about the headspace of, these relationships, and I'll talk about really my employee relationships and my client relationships, right? They're very, very important to me, a very big part of my community, as it were. I've been thinking a lot about the new year, and we're so excited. We just want to get past elections, and we want to get past the new year, and we want to get into the season of vaccines. and my current fear, the thing that wakes me up at 4 a.m. these days, is we're not even probably halfway through the marathon.
Yeah. What encourages me is hoping that at the end of 2021, we're through this. Like right now, we know at the end of 20, we're still here. But maybe, just maybe the end of 21. I've set up I won't divulge on what accounts or anything, but one of my passwords I use for non-financial and secure things is 12/31/20. And that's because that's the last day of this year. And like you, I'm ready to turn the page and see what the next year brings. But you're right. I think we are probably not even to halftime yet of this whole game. Not that it's a game, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. So I've been thinking about a couple things. One is, when we talk about cultivating relationships as really our company mantra, but really a personal mantra, we have been separated from the normal ways we conduct these relationships. I mean, I haven't had, in this entire time, I've only had 2 in-person, socially distanced client-facing meetings.
Wow.
That everything else has been on Zoom. And relationships feel different through the screen. And so I'm thinking a lot right now about cultivating relationships and building trust, through a webcam.
Yeah.
And what does that look like? And what does that feel like? And how are we really feeling inside about relationships? How depleted are we, but we're not really recognizing it yet? It's like that marathon runner, and you're just running and running. And I don't run marathons,
yeah.
But I've heard
yes.
people have told me that you get in a zone,
yep.
right? You just kind of get in this zone, and you're just kind of going and going, and you kind of don't feel it. You don't feel pain. You don't feel tired, thirsty. You just sort of going. And then you might have these little adrenaline surges. Like you might turn a corner, or you might go past some stands and there's some crowds cheering you on, or right. And you have these little moments of little surges. And then you might have this little moment of, oh, my foot, that kind of hurt my foot.
Yeah. My knee's hurting a little more than usual. Yeah.
But in essence, you're still in this zone, and you're still having forward movement. And it isn't really until you cross the finish line that you collapse. Right.
And that happens a lot.
You very often see, I mean, they bent over, they may even lay on the ground. It's not till you cross that finish line. And I feel like we've had fake finish lines, we were thinking it's
reopening,
here,
and then
we think it's here, and you're like, okay, I can make it, and then oh God, I still got to keep going. And so our relationships are really what I think keep us in a marathon mindset, right? The strength of our relationships, not the quantity,
Right.
but the strength of those relationships, clients, employees, personal, for me in my world, and what am I doing to sustain those? What am I doing to invest in those? Probably not enough. And it certainly can't be the way it's always been. It can't be, meeting a bunch of different friends, for dinner, the way and the levels that we used to do it. And how much do we need those relationships for what I'm calling the marathon mindset?
Yeah.
And not being a marathon runner, I don't really know what that is. I don't really, but I know that I need to have it.
Well, Lorianne, my wife, runs half marathons, so we can ask her. But I've seen that. I've seen the two most popular spots after a half marathon or a marathon are, where they pick up their banana and their orange and their water, and the first aid station. Because there's a lot of people, like you said, who have just, and she's been there. She has run and done wonderfully over the last several years, but it's not uncommon for her and others to end up there, whether it's, ice the knee or whatever it might be. So let me ask you a question. In your line of expertise, because you are about helping people brand, which ultimately is helping their relationships with their clients. Let me take this personally with you. What are you doing in this environment we're in? I tell people that my width of relationships isn't as big as it was 8 months ago, but my depth is deeper, because now when I'm talking with you, it's just you and me. And when I'm on the screen, it's just me and the person or people on the screen. I don't say, "Hey Jane, how you doing?" and then walk by and go to my next thing. It's, "How you doing?" And then I'm waiting and we're talking. So I'm finding, for me personally, I'm having deeper relationships with fewer people, which is new for me. That's not my personality type. But for you, what advice are you giving your clients, or what are you doing for you and for your associates at your company or others that you talk to about how they can maintain and still grow those relationships? Because we're both in the relationship business.
Mm-hmm. So we've done a variety of things. So I'll start with employees. So we used to do an in-house happy hour, and it was really to fulfill sort of this community. I have this sort of performance grid for our team members that's based on creating wins and cultivating relationships. And there's a community box on that grid, and making sure that what are we doing for community? And community is defined in many different ways. And so we used to do these in-house happy hours, and you sort of everything got turned upside down in terms of scheduling and team meetings, team happy hours, all of those things went out the window. And we've really morphed those over weekly check-ins, twice a week check-ins. Then we went to 3 times a week. Now we're back to once a week, trying to create structures to at least stay in touch, maybe not super deep, but really just kind of checking in and making sure people are still, present and sort of showing up. And then we started doing we brought back happy hours, but we do them virtually now. So team members join on, and we have a topic or a theme. And so everybody gets to speak. And so we kind of go around the horn, and, it could be, what are you binge watching right now? And why should I watch it? Right. And then we go around the room go around the Zoom. And
the Zoom. Yeah, exactly.
And so a little bit manufactured structures to foster at least touch points.
Right.
I would say those aren't super deep. But what I have done also is I've increased my available, what I would call office hours.
Yeah.
It's called mentor time, and it's on my calendar, and anybody can hop onto my calendar and see that mentor time is available. And it used to be obviously in office. And so you could just swing by my office during office hours, and anytime just kind of pop in. Now it's on, virtual. And so I'll just hop onto a Google Hangout or Google Meet and leave the window open. And so people can just pop in and pop out. So it's sort of like trying to adapt with clients. We've converted a lot of our clients to short weekly meetings. So they're shorter, they're check-ins, they're updates. So because things are changing so quickly too, and you might think of something and, oh, the good news is there's a meeting 2 days from now, but we're also making sure that we're inching along, right? So what progress was made the last week? How are we all holding each other accountable? Because, you know, any client relationship is really a partnership. They need something from us, but we also need something from them. So we've converted a lot of our clients to these shorter weekly meetings. So frequency,
Yeah.
of touch points. And then we've done things like I did a whole series of handwritten notes. So every day I'd send out 3 or 4, whether it was employees or clients or whatever. That was back in May, you know, checking in, thanking them for their business service. We're here to help, whatever. I don't know. It's like, I'll try anything, I
Yeah.
think, really
Yeah.
is.
And we're all in that experimentation mode right now. And we're all a
Yeah.
little more forgiving of each other for, you know, things in the background, noises in the background, technology quirks, things like that. We're all just a little bit more understanding because we're all in it. You mentioned at the very beginning the word why, and that's ultimately why I'm doing this podcast. I mean, the vision for this isn't necessarily to dive into the backgrounds of people, because you can Google that or look on people's bios or resumes, and we do tell a lot of stories, and that's ultimately why I have this passion for these podcasts and talking to people like you. And some are people that I know very well, like you. Others are people that I met on this screen for the first time. They logged in. It's like, oh, so you're Joe, and you're Joe. Okay, great. I know this is a very big question, but I'm going to ask it and then have you go wherever you want to go with it.
Okay.
Two-part question. Why did you start JP Marketing in 1994, and why are you still doing it 26 years later?
Okay, the second question is easier to answer,
I bet.
because I love what I do.
Yeah.
You know, it really does go back to the why. To bring the conversation full circle, it really is creating wins and cultivating relationships, and this business allows me to do that. So when I say creating wins and cultivating relationships is my passion, marketing is my medium,
Mm-hmm.
that's really, you know, Simon Sinek, right? It's really the why.
Yeah.
It just happens to be that where I landed was
You
in
could be a
marketing.
doctor or a lawyer or in anything and still have cultivating wins or creating wins and cultivating relationships as your
Correct.
mantra. Yeah.
And you know, let's be honest, Ed. After 25 years, I joke, but it's kind of not a joke. I don't really know how to do anything else.
I knew you were going there. Yeah, exactly. Well, when you get really good at something, that's true. A lot of people keep doing it because what else would I do? But yeah, I've met a lot of your clients because I've been up there. You've invited me up, and think I've been a part of at least one of those happy hours, and I've met a lot of your clients and so forth too. And so I know that they bring you in because you are just a master at creating those wins for them, and obviously cultivating those relationships. Let's go
And I just
back.
love it.
Yeah.
I truly am excited to come to work every day. My to-do list is stupid long.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes I think to myself, do I have the brain capacity today to do this, write this strategic plan or craft the next trade show booth concept or whatever it is. And then as the day proceeds, then it just starts it popping, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
it's fun to feel like you kind of own a space, or you're kind of an expert in a space. And at the end of the day, I really am helping people. Now, I'm not feeding the world, but for that person, if I can make their world better, or
Mm-hmm.
them feel better about their work or their brand, or you know, increase their sales, whatever it might be, I've helped that person. It's like, you know, you threw the one starfish back and you helped that
I
one.
tell
You
that
did,
story a lot
right?
right here. Yeah.
That story, you hear that
Yeah.
story all the time. And so I'm not saving the world, but could I make somebody's world a little better in some way, whether that's the client or their customer? You know, maybe I did make a little bit of a difference.
How many
How I
employees?
got into
Oh,
it,
yeah.
how I got into this business is a much longer story. Let me see. I'll see if I can tell the short version.
Cool.
So, I was a 15-year-old junior in high school, and we have to take these assessment tests. Lots of different tests, answer a bunch of questions, and these assessments were supposed to sort of spit out, you know, what you
Here's
would
the
be.
best job. Yeah.
Right. So take all the tests. I have my meeting with my counselor. His name is Mr. Dale Miner. at Reedley High School. And he says, well, we have a little bit of a problem here. I'm thinking, oh boy.
I failed the assessment. There's no job for me. Yeah.
He's like, your results are all over the place, from astronaut, scientist, to food chef,
A lot of interests,
artist. You are all over the place. Yeah. But we have to write something in your chart. So what's it going to be? What do you want to be? And I was like, God, when you're 15 years old, you have no idea.
It's like, why did I take the assessment? Why didn't we just go to that question, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So he said, well, think about this. He said, where do you want to be 10 years from now? If you could picture yourself 10 years out, what does that look like? And so I said to myself, well, I think 10 years from now, what I want to do is I want to have my own company helping other businesses with their business. Pretty insightful for 15.
And it covers all of those different broad interests that you have.
Right. So he had these little like reader glasses on, and he, how they push them down and they
Peer
like,
over them, yeah.
over their nose, right? And so he pushes these little reader glasses down and he looks at me over the top of his reader glasses and he says, 10 years from now, you're only going to be 25 years old. Let me tell you why owning your own business isn't going to happen for you.
Wow.
Okay, now this is my high school counselor. Aren't they supposed to help you?
Exactly.
I think he thought he was helping me by being realistic.
Right.
He actually, in the end, did help me. So what he said, well, 10 years from now, you're only going to be 25. The first reason that's not going to happen for you is when you go into a career, you have to start in the mailroom and you have to work your way up, and you're going to need more than 10 years. It takes at least 20 years, to work your way up and then maybe branch out and start your own business. And I said, okay, so I can't age any faster. What's another reason why this isn't going to happen for me? He said, well, another reason why this isn't going to happen for you is because you're Hispanic. And Hispanic people don't own their own businesses. They work for other people.
Wow.
Okay. Well, I can't really fix that.
Yeah, exactly. That's
not too much I can do
not
about
changing
that.
Yep.
And I just kept waiting for him to say, like, take more math classes or be a better writer. Like, give me something I could actually
something I can do. Yeah. I can't age faster and I can't change being a Latina. So what do I change?
So now what? So now what do I do? And so he says, well, the third and final reason why this isn't going to happen for you is because you're female.
Knew that was coming.
Don't own their own companies. And I thought to myself, well, I can't change that either. Now, I know back then I didn't realize you actually can change your gender.
Yeah. I didn't have any That's another podcast, different topic, and I'm not going there.
I didn't have any interest in changing my gender. But at the time I thought, well, you've just told me 3 things that I have no control over, right? And so I walk out of his office. I'm crying, right? I don't have my driver. I'm 15. I don't have my driver's license. I have to call my mom to pick me up from school. And we're driving home and she's asking me what happened. I told her what happened. And she said, oh, honey, she's driving with one hand and pats me on my leg with the other hand. She goes, oh, honey, it's okay. You can be anything you want to be, right? Probably just trying to placate me.
Sure.
But I think deep down, I probably owe him a thank you because I'm just stubborn enough to take that information. I was sad for about a day.
Yeah.
And then I said, you know what?
And you shifted to mad.
Right. You go through the stages, right?
Yeah.
And then I was like, I'll show you. I'm going to double down on this. I'm going to so for the next 10 years, I kept telling people I'm going to own my own company and I'm going to help people with their businesses. Now what I thought I was going to be was, I went to Fresno State, actually a computer science major. And what I was going to do is I was going to learn software programs and I was going to go into companies and train their people on computer software so that their companies could run better. So I was going to be a computer trainer.
Sure.
That was sort of my goal.
Yeah.
And then I took a communications class at Fresno State from Dr. Hal Boken, and that flipped my world. I was like, I am in love.
This is me right here. Yeah.
I am loving every minute of this class. And so I changed my major and, ended up in communications and here we are. But I got started in some jobs in career, got into some media, but it was still sort of in the back of my mind that someday I was going to have my own business. And I was working for a small advertising agency. There's just 3 employees, and the parent company of the agency had some really significant financial trouble that impacted the agency. And so we ended up basically disbanding. And we let the 6 clients we had at the time, we let them know we were going to be leaving the agency as a courtesy. And all of them contacted us and said, well, we still want to work with you. How do we make that happen? And I said, well, I guess we can start a company. And so sure enough, I didn't know what I was doing, but went and figured out how to come up with a business name, get a business license, open a bank account. And that happened on December 16th, 1994. And I was 2 weeks away from turning 26.
So you're still 25, just like you said you would.
Yeah. And for a long time, I wanted to reconnect with Mr. Miner, my former high school counselor. I wanted to reconnect with him and show him he was wrong. And then he passed. And over the years, I've come to realize I probably should have thanked him, because maybe he was intentional.
I was going to say
that would light a fire under me. I don't really know what his intent was at the time, but everything happens for a reason, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And I think there are a lot of people who that is their success story. Not yours is unique, obviously, but so many people are successful because someone influential in their life told them that they couldn't.
Yep.
So let's talk about those challenges for a minute. The age part, a lot of the people that listen to the podcast are young, because I work at a university, there's a handful of university students that will listen. Cal State Fullerton is #1 for Latino students. And we're #1 for female students in a lot of different categories. And I know several of the female Latina young students. So the 22-year-old Latina who has maybe been told the same thing, and I want you to talk to everybody, but talk to her for a minute about what, more than just I took a communications class, but a lot of things happen from 15 to 25. Your Miss California experience there. I know what that did for you. Maybe you can share how that helped you, or other things you did got you to 2 weeks from your 26th birthday, and now you're a business owner. Mm-hmm.
I would say there's a number of things. Yeah. The first is when to listen to all of the voices in your head, because there's going to be voices that are encouraging you. There's going to be voices of fear, whether these voices are incoming from the outside or it's just your own brain at work. I think it's important to listen to all those voices, because I think those voices help guide your choices. And making good choices is super important. Even if the choice is, I'm in the wrong spot and it's time to move on, right? So you may make a choice and then get there and realize, ooh, that was a bad choice. Then make the choice to make a different choice.
Sure.
Especially when you're young, because you can have so much fluidity. The other thing that I would say is really important, and gosh, it just keeps coming back to relationships, doesn't it? I seized every opportunity put in front of me, literally every opportunity put in front of me. And I was, tired and running hard all the time. But if there was an internship opportunity, I would take it. If there was a part-time job opportunity, I would take it. If there was a class opportunity, a workshop opportunity, and all along the way, meeting people and being as authentic as possible, because man, you run into those people again at some point in your life. And somebody had given me a really good piece of advice when I was very young. And the advice was, as you're climbing the ladder, don't shit on the people that are beneath you, because when you slide down that ladder or you fall off the ladder, you'll be landing in your own poop.
Hmm.
And you know, that's true, because life is up and downs.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to have a couple steps forward and a couple steps back. And the trail that you leave behind you is truly a trail. You may have even forgotten parts of that trail, but I guarantee you the other people didn't.
Yeah.
You know, the other people that you touched or especially negatively touched will not forget. And I think when you're making those choices, you know, being super thoughtful about them, being super aware and mindful of those choices, but seizing opportunities and being careful with the relationships around you, you know.
Because you never know. My dad always said, never burn a bridge. Still does. 93 years old, still says the same thing. And a lot of it is just, it's not that we treat people well because we may need them or they may be our boss or our superior. We treat them well because it's the right thing to do. But
Just be nice.
also just be nice, be kind, because it's, you know, kindness is the greatest gift we can give someone and the greatest gift we can receive back. And yeah, the other, your analogy of falling down the ladder and landing in your own poop, but also knowing that while you're falling down the ladder, they may be climbing that same ladder, and you never know, you may be looking up and going, wow, I sure wish I would have treated that person better, because now they have a chance to impact my life a little bit. So was there, so you gave a story of your high school, I'll say guidance counselor, use that term loosely,
Yeah.
rest in peace. Any other mentor or anybody that stands out that, you know, maybe on the positive side? Yeah, he was a positive as you look back in hindsight, of course, because
Mhm.
tell me I can and I will.
Mhm.
But anybody that stands out that, like I think of my high school baseball coach, and I can go into stories of him, and I have on this podcast in the past. Anybody that stands out for you?
Um, so a couple.
Okay.
One is well, let me just say this. I am lucky in that I had two very supportive parents. Not financially, did not have money,
Right.
but they were present. You know, they were there for me. They showed up at anything I was doing, did the best they could. Um, you know, provided a roof over our heads and you know, and loved us the best they knew how. And I know there's a lot of people that don't have that.
Right.
And so, you know, I did have, you know, a comfortable place to lay, right? And I knew I had a foundation that I could trust would be there. So I was very lucky to have that. But many success stories come from challenging places.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't have that. When I was Miss California, I was mentored really by a team of people. But the director was a woman named Caroline Munger, and I was scared of her.
Mm-hmm.
I had known of her and her legacy in the pageant world and her standards of excellence. And you know how there are people, you may have had a coach like this, where they just kind of give you that look and you're just scared. You're not entirely sure what they're thinking,
High
but
school
you
football
know.
coach / algebra teacher. Yes, I know Mr. Hill. I can tell you story after story about that. But yeah, I get it.
Yeah. And so I was, you know, I won Miss California, and I knew she was going to be my director, and I knew her legacy, and I was thrilled and scared at the same time, because I knew the standards and the rigor, and you know, I have to represent the state. I am now representing every young girl on that stage and throughout the state of California. It's a lot of pressure,
Sure.
you know, to be that person and to work under her standards. And there were so many just little phrases and words that she would say to me, but probably more than anybody, she forced me to expand my horizons, to try new things, to you know, do my hair and makeup in a way I had never done before, to dress differently. And you could say to yourself, well, those are just surface things. Those are exterior things. Not when you have to live into that space.
Right.
Right? Not when you have to be, not when you have to say, okay, now I'm going to present myself as this person. And she could see things that I couldn't see at the time. right? And so the exterior was her way of, this is something I can manipulate, but really what she was doing was head tripping me into kind of these new spaces and exploration. Some of it worked and some of it didn't, which was fine, but along that path, you just really get stretched, right? And you find things that are comfortable and you find things that are uncomfortable. You find things that take a little bit to grow into. At the end of my year, you know, you do a farewell speech and you say goodbye and thank you to everybody. And I did a photo montage. And the night that I was crowned, there's a picture of her and I walking into this reception that they have after the show's over. And we're walking into the reception and she's presenting me to the room. And it's from the picture's taken from the back and you can see a whole room of people and she's holding my hand. And I don't recall her ever holding my hand, certainly not before that, or after that. Like I don't remember even my entire year, but this is day one, right? This is our first hour in this relationship. And she's holding my hand and she's guiding me into the room. Right before we cross the threshold of the room, she leans over to me and whispers in my ear, "When we leave here, this dress you're wearing, you're going to burn it and never wear it again." And then we smile and we walk into the room.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Not the words you expected to hear, but okay.
Now, mind you, it was a used dress because we didn't have the money for these fancy dresses. And my mom had done her best to make it fit me and maybe add a few little sequins here and there.
And it worked.
But that was, you know, that was really, the photo to me captures exactly how direct she was with me in communication, to almost boot campish.
Yeah.
Almost like strip you down and then build you back up. But the symbolism of her holding my hand really helped me reflect on all that we had been through together over that year, to know that day one, her intent was to guide me.
Yeah.
Right. And be there for me. So many life lessons learned from her. And, you know, I mean, that's a 3-hour conversation, but very, very, very much impact, probably very much like a coach. I didn't do athletics. Right. I'm not an athlete. So very much like that. Yeah.
Yeah. My, Coach Martin, my senior year high school baseball coach, he had high standards and expectations, no bad language, no chewing tobacco, which you shouldn't have to tell high school kids, but you do because it's baseball. But to this day, I mean, I'm in touch with him. He lives up in Chico, so a little bit north of you. And I'm in regular communication with him. He's meant so much to me, and it's because he pushed us. So as you mentored, going back to your experience now, as you take that experience that you just described, I know you mentor others because I know some that you've mentored. How do you use that, what you learned from her, in reverse as you mentor other young women or men? I know you have a lot of employees that you mentor. You have colleagues of mine that you've mentored, myself in many ways as well. How do you use that experience as you kind of relate to and drive others? Because you're not that type of personality as she is.
I can be.
Well, but yeah.
I can be. I think I learned, I think she was very observant and very present. When she was with you, she was with you.
Mm-hmm.
And she noticed everything. And so I would say I take a lot of that from her. I think really being present is so important. If you only have 5 minutes of one-on-one time with somebody, or, mentor time, somebody comes to me and they have a question, I think really being present is so important. What I also took away from her is a little bit of the don't. She was so direct, in her style and approach. Over time, she scared me less. But I would tell you today that if she walked in, I would immediately feel slightly insecure right now.
Yeah. Sure.
Because she was so direct. And I don't know that people can hear what they need to hear sometimes that way. I've been working, I brought some of my books with me in case you wanted to know what's on my bookshelf.
Yeah, I have that in my
This
bullet
book,
point.
The Coaching Habit,
Okay.
I've read twice, and I have it, I put like markers on places where I need to remember to go. What I'm really working on, that I would say is the opposite of Carol Lee's approach, is asking better questions. So instead of just directing or providing, quote, the answer, because it's my answer, how do I ask better questions so that the person seeking the guidance is actually thinking through it on their own, and then it is theirs.
Yeah, we internalize it more when it comes from inside than if you tell me, hey, I've got 30 years experience this. Let me tell you what worked for me. Well, that's you, first of all. And yeah, it doesn't become internal until that. And that's the art of asking questions, is getting somebody to give the answer that they came up with, because then it's more real and authentic and life-changing.
Mm-hmm. I think there's a time and a place for storytelling, because I think, like a good fable, you can learn a lesson. But this book really, it basically says, be quiet and listen more, which, is a challenge for me right off the bat. But I'm really trying to do better at asking good questions as a way to guide and counsel. So I would say I haven't mastered it yet, but I'm working on it.
Yeah. Grab another book, hold another one up and tell me about it. Because this is fascinating. You can see, this is just like, 0.1% of the books that I have, but what these books have in common, and I'm pointing for those that are just listening, my bookshelf of 3 or 4 levels of books, is they're all books. I keep the books in my office that I've read or that are like next in my lineup, because I refer back to them a lot. I've got in my office back at Cal State Fullerton shelves of books I haven't gotten to yet, because people know I like to read books, especially on leadership and stories and biographies. And so those are there waiting for me whenever I go back. But for now, these are the ones, Ken Blanchard books and Malcolm Gladwell books and, Halftime and other inspiring books that I refer to all the time.
So many of my
what
favorites.
else you got there?
So these two a bit go hand in hand, and I'm revisiting them right now. So this is Daring Greatly by Brene Brown.
Brene Brown.
I
have Dare to Lead sitting right over there. Yeah.
Famous for this one. I was introduced to Brene only a couple of years ago. This book was gifted to me by someone who is now my fiance.
Nice.
And this concept of being vulnerable is so scary, but so important. And I'm revisiting it because of the world we're in today, where we are now, how do we continue to feel safe and be in a safe space to be our authentic selves and do that again through, a webcam.
Exactly.
And then this book is Indestructible.
I love that book.
And it was actually a homework assignment last year. So in 2019 for my entire team, because our worlds are so filled with distractions, notifications, phones vibrating, watches, your watch goes off constantly. Your screen is just filled with things, and trying to, time box is one of the most important things I learned from this book is, putting on my calendar intentional time for things, which is really hard for me. I do find that I ping pong around as my day goes. And so blocking out time and saying, this is what I'm going to do during this time, not just for work, but also for personal.
Sure.
And so this, how to control attention and choose your life is just like, I feel like more than anything, we feel our lives are out of control this year.
Yeah.
And so if we can at least control our day to the best of our ability and how we invest that time, because once that 24 hours is gone, you ain't getting it back.
Yeah. You burn it. It's like, like burning wood. That wood's gone. Yeah. I had a conversation yesterday with some clients, and I was talking about just that very topic, about how when I was face to face, not on my computer, but literally back in that world that we used to belong to, where we could shake hands and hug people and go to meetings and lunches and so forth. It was actually easier for me to manage my schedule because I knew, for example, if I had an hour drive to a client, well, that was an hour of me time to listen to a podcast or get on the phone with another client or just have no sound and just get into my head and think or pray or whatever I needed to do in that moment. I'm finding this year has been much more difficult. I'm hanging up from a Zoom call and launching another one all day long, and because a lot of us are working from home, we now have home. I'm not going to call them distractions, but home responsibilities that can distract from other things. You know, just like things that I do for work can distract me from family time. The other holds true as well, and it's been harder for me. And I've heard a lot of people say that same thing, that having that balance this year has just been really, really hard. So yeah, that Indestructible is a book that I've read it and I would recommend it to anyone, especially
Yeah.
this year, because there are a lot of distractions, that's for sure.
Oh man. Yeah. My, I grab onto these like little sayings,
Yeah, me
and
too.
when I do our team meetings, sometimes I'll open with something like a little inspirational or whatever. But my current one is, wherever you are, be there.
Be there.
And it's kind of a simplistic way to say be present and be mindful, which is so hard. It's so hard. I find myself on Zoom calls sometimes, mind wandering. I think of something else and I'll write it down, so I'm looking away. It's so hard to be so present all day long in this way.
Right.
If I'm in a room with people in a meeting, it's much easier for me to be wherever I am, be there. But I don't know,
Yeah, because
Zoom.
off screen you can be looking at your phone or reading through text messages and people don't know. Not that you're doing it because they don't know, but I mean, it is easier. My phone is, it's a little bit further away than arm's reach for me, and that's intentional. It's face down. That's also intentional because, while I'm talking to you, whether we're recording or not, I want to be talking with you. I'm not perfect at it by any stretch. If this wasn't a podcast, I'd probably be, talking with you, flipping through the phone and a
Of
little
course.
less present. So let me ask you a quick question. What breaks your heart when you think about, obviously go back to that experience you had of being told 3 things you couldn't change. So obviously I'm guessing there's a little bit of that in this question. But when you think about where you give business owners like yourself, you're very successful, you've built up this organization and it's doing really, really great things for a lot of people. So you get asked to give, write checks, spend time, give your talent. I know you donate thousands of hours of your expertise to the community. That's very well documented in your bio, and I admire that. I think that's fantastic. So on that, how do you choose where you give that, but also just in general, going back to my initial question, what breaks your heart when you think about some injustice or something that you would like to or are doing something about? What would that be?
I think what breaks my heart, I'm probably not doing anything about it except trying to lead by example. And that is, all the things you needed to know you learned in kindergarten.
Mm-hmm.
And, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything at all. I feel like all of us need a lesson in that.
Yeah.
Like, it's one thing to say, be kind, right? But that means you're taking an initiative and creating an action of some sort, right? That would be ideal.
Mm-hmm.
If we could all just be kind and say something nice or open a door for someone or just the little things. And I am telling you, the little things are so critical right now, just the tiniest little things. But if you can't do that, either in that moment or can't find it in yourself to do that, could you at not say anything mean?
Yeah. You have nothing nice to say nothing at all, right?
Yeah, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. And I mean, not just in person, I mean on social media or wherever else you might be saying, something that's not nice. It's just so, can we just treat each other humanely,
Yeah.
or stay out of the way. That I don't have a solution for that. I try to live that. Can I make a difference? I don't know. Maybe a little thing I do, somebody else could pay it forward. I don't know. But man, that just breaks my heart. I can't even, sometimes scroll through social media and things that people say or post or comment, and it's just, man, words hurt.
Yeah. And it gives people a lot of courage when they don't actually have to have a face-to-face, because 99% of the things that you read there, people wouldn't say, hopefully they wouldn't say in person to somebody. Maybe they would, and maybe that's really a bummer. But
Mhm.
yeah, you see things that go, would you say that to that person if they were standing in front of you? Because if they are, you're more horrible than the person you just called horrible.
Right?
So
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. Um, so I would say that's probably the thing right now that is the most upsetting to me or breaks my heart the most. In terms of how we give each year, we definitely have, every year we have some effort, and we give talent, time, and money
Hmm.
to either a single organization and try to make a larger impact, or we work with multiple organizations. We actually just participated in helping a nonprofit get started called Rebuild Our Sierra. And with these fires throughout California this year, there is a fire that's not fully contained yet, that is in our backyard, and it's the Sierra Mountains, the
Yeah.
Sierra Nevada Mountains, and devastating amounts of damage, and homes lost, businesses lost, and frankly our forest, the places where we went when we would go up to the snow to play as kids. So many of us have memories from there. And one of the people in my office grew up there. And she's like, I'm feeling compelled to do this thing and to start this nonprofit. I was like, we're on board.
Let's do it.
Let's make a list, get a logo, get a name, build a website, get some partners, get a steering committee. And it's like, we got a partner. They already had a 501c3, and we are hitting the ground running. And our whole team is participating in different ways to help, bootstrap this and get this. The goal is raise $1 million and help rebuild. Right. So once the rescue is complete and the fire is complete, and the debris removal is complete, then everybody sort of forgets.
Right.
And our goal is we're not going to forget.
That's
We're
where the
going
work
to
has to
now
start.
rebuild.
Yeah.
Now what?
Right.
Right? How do we bring that community back? How do we forest manage better? How do we plant appropriately? What are all those things that we do? And man, we've been so lucky to have so much support right out of the chute. So I think it's, what's the greatest need in that moment, and that one just hit us just right, and so we jumped on.
How do people get in touch with you about that? I'm going to ask you in a few moments how they get in touch with you in general, but about that particular nonprofit, because that's stirring up things in me, and I know it is in others as well.
Yeah, it's rebuildoursierra.org, and the website's up. We built it. It's getting updated on a regular basis. We have so much more to add to it. We want it to be a resource for information for residents who now have to begin the debris removal process, recovery process. Keep checking back.
Sure.
There'll be many, many ways, but yeah, we're right now it's all volunteer, and we've already got some great donors lined up, and we'll be unveiling a plan soon, what our first round of investments will be as we start the rebuild process.
Awesome. What advice are your clients asking now that's different, maybe completely opposite or different, or just a little bit different in the last 8 months of the COVID crisis? And what advice would you give? You work a lot with family businesses. Most of my listeners are family business owners and leaders, as you know, because that's how you and I met. What are you hearing? What are they asking? And what are you providing that's now different than the last 8 months, or now than it was 8 months ago?
Yeah. The conversations we're having are mostly centered around customer relationships. What is the current state of your customer relationship? And for every business, that's different, right? Some of their customers have been shut down. Some of them have been in go mode and experiencing some of the greatest sales.
Yep.
And so it's really an evaluation of our clients' customer relationships. Where are we? Where are you? What do we need to double down on? What is it that you have always been for those customers? What is it that they know that they can count on? Because more than now, customers are looking for something that's consistent or normal, right?
Yeah,
So if
sure.
our clients can provide whatever it is that they sell, a product or a service, but if they can do that in a way that is consistent for that customer. Now, you may have tweaked it a bit. Maybe your processes are different because of, COVID or whatever. Sure. But I'm talking about the core of what you deliver to that customer. What is that experience? Can they still count on X? And if they can, we need to double down on delivering that thing that they know. We always joke, but it's not a joke. You can go, to any McDonald's or any Starbucks, across the country, and that drink or that sandwich taste the same. And while you may say to yourself, well, that's not my favorite, it's consistent.
Yeah.
It's consistent.
Yeah.
And so what can we do to deliver comfort through consistency?
Yeah,
So,
people are longing for that right now. You're right, because we're letting go of a rung of a ladder, to use a sort of an analogy used earlier. We're going in a different spot with it now. But yeah, we're letting go of rungs on the ladder that we have to let go of because they're on fire. And so we have to, literally and figuratively speaking, and we have to grab a hold of other rungs that we've always been afraid of or didn't know were there. Or now, we're living in Zoomlandia. We're doing Zoom calls all day with clients. And like you, I've been out to clients face to face very infrequently in the last 8 months, whereas I would probably go to 3 or 4 a day in most weeks. So yeah, it's definitely a challenge. What message would you like your clients that are listening to this, or just people in general who may think, because I will tell you right now, working with Jane is a thrill. I've worked with her in the past. We've had some mutual clients together. She's, like I said, spoken at our center at Cal State Fullerton. There are projects out ahead that we will do. And honestly, you may not know this, but one of the inspirations for me doing the podcast was you. Some of the things that you've done up in Fresno with your clients and some of the YouTube stuff and others that you've done got me thinking about, I really want to tell people stories as well, like you've done. So how can they reach you? What would be the message? What do you hope that they take away just from this hour-long conversation we're having today? Lots of questions there. I throw a lot of questions at people.
You can reach me through my website, the Contact Us page. The URL is jpmktg.com, short for JP Marketing. That's probably the best way, or you can find me on LinkedIn. I think as I just reflect on this conversation we've had today, if we were to take the manuscript and word cloud it, I bet you the word relationships would be one of the top words that would pop up.
Sure.
And I think that's really central in where we are today. Honestly, it's what separates humankind from all other species, right? Is this need for human connection. Now, some of us need more and some of us need less, but at the end of the day, we all need some. And so in evaluating your relationships, investing in those relationships, keeping the ones that are important close and the ones that maybe aren't serving you well, maybe having a long, hard conversation with yourself about that.
Yeah.
And making space for new ones or deeper ones, or really asking yourself, am I contributing to this relationship in any meaningful way? If I'm not, should I be? And I would say that, for me, what's in my community is my employees, my clients, my a few select friends, and my small family.
Yeah.
And it is a lot of relationships to manage, but at the end of the day, that's where everything happens, right?
Yeah.
That's how you're going to be remembered. That's also where you're going to get your support. And, it's so central. And I feel like this year, more than any year, has really taught me that,
Yeah.
to be super mindful and thoughtful about those, and to be even more present for those.
And hopefully we take those lessons with us after this, because there will be a time that we will say, hey, we're now in the post-COVID era. But like we talked about earlier today, we don't know if that's going to be 2021, or if 2020 was the year of the pandemic. Maybe 2021 hopefully is the year of the vaccine, and 2022 is the year free of all of this. And that might be, and it's sad to think of it that way, but I tell a lot of people too that at some point in time, Ken Blanchard said in a conversation he and I had back in March, and you and I have very similar feelings about that man. He's become quite a friend and a mentor, but he said on a call we did in March, let's not waste this experience. And that's lived on my whiteboard since. And the reason that it's in my email signature now as well is because, my hope for me and for you and for anybody listening is that we look at all these experiences, the fires in the mountains, the loss of job, the loved ones getting sick or worse, and somehow look back on what did we learn, how did we grow, and how are we impacting our society around us differently because of this. It's hard to be in the forest and look at the trees and say, wow, I'm so grateful for this tree, but it is really easy looking back, say, I'm so grateful I went through that. So the counselor, when you were 15, you probably weren't too grateful on that first day. But as you said, you probably should have reached back and thanked him. And that's exactly, I think, what we're talking about today. So
Precisely.
let me wrap up with my last question that I ask everyone. And you've just shared it for the last hour, but I'm going to ask you to kind of put a bow on it now. Okay. You ready?
I think so.
Yeah. All right. Well, the name of the podcast is From the Heart, and it's my why is I like to hear people's stories and give them a forum to share their story. And most importantly, what's in your heart?
2020 was proclaimed, for me personally, the year of gratitude. And it was my intention to commit to a year of gratitude and recognizing the littlest things and being thankful for them. And I have stayed pretty true to that, despite all the challenges. Is every day there has to be some little thing. And in that moment, when I start to complain, I have to remind myself that whatever it is that I am about to fuss about, it's very likely a first world problem, right? And I should be thankful that my problems are first world problems. And I am.